Okay, so paper embossing press operators, huh? Sounds a little industrial at first, like something you'd see on like a How It's Made episode, you know?
Right, like a big factory, machines churning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we're diving into this. There's more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, definitely. It's way more intricate than it sounds. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you got a really nice invitation? Like thick paper, you can feel the letters.
Oh yeah, like a wedding invitation or something?
Exactly. Or even like a high-end product, the
Yeah.
packaging has that raised lettering. That's what we're talking about. That's the work of a paper embossing press operator.
Okay, so it's about adding that extra touch, that texture that makes it feel special.
Yes. Taking something ordinary and making it extraordinary,
Hmm.
turning paper into an experience.
I like that, turning paper into an experience. So how do they actually do it? What's the process involved?
Well, it starts with these things called dies. They're basically engraved plates, kind of like a stamp, but instead of ink, they use pressure to create a raised or indented design.
So instead of like putting ink on the paper, they're pressing the design into it.
Exactly. It's like, imagine how a coin has those raised details.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's the same principle, but applied to, well, all sorts of materials, actually. Paper, cardboard, sometimes even metal.
Wow, I had no idea it was so versatile.
Oh, yeah, it's used for all kinds of things. But, you'd think in today's digital world, this kind of thing would be dying out.
Right, like who needs embossed paper when you have Evites and digital ads everywhere? Mm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. There's just something about that tactile experience that people still crave. It's like, you can look at pictures of a painting online, but it's not the same as seeing it in person, feeling the texture of the canvas.
Yeah, you lose something in the digital translation.
Exactly. And that's where embossing comes in. It adds that extra dimension, that tangible quality that you just can't replicate on a screen. And that's why this kind of specialized skill is still in high demand, especially for, luxury brands and products. They live for that extra touch of, well, luxury.
It's almost like it's become even more special because it's less common now.
Right. And it's not just a dying art. There's a real career path here.
Right.
It's like a ladder you can climb. You start at an entry-level position and work your way up.
Oh, interesting. So like what's the progression look like?
Well, you start as an assistant, learning the ropes, helping out the more experienced operators. And then as you gain experience, you get more responsibility, more hands-on with the machines.
So you start as the apprentice and then become the master craftsman.
Exactly. You'll learn how to set up the presses, troubleshoot problems. You might even get to train newcomers.
That's cool. So it's a good mix of technical skills and like artistic vision too.
Absolutely.
Oh.
You need to understand the machinery, but you also need an eye for detail, a sense of how different textures and pressures will affect the final product.
It's like a blend of art and science, really.
Exactly. And as you get even further along, you might find yourself managing entire projects, overseeing teams of people, working directly with clients.
Wow, so there's real room for growth in this field.
There is. It's more than just operating a machine. And, speaking of which, with all the advancements in printing technology, I'm curious, how does that impact this kind of work?
Yeah, like is digital printing pushing out this more traditional craft?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's something we're going to unpack because the answer is a bit nuanced. While digital definitely has its place, it hasn't completely replaced the need for these skilled craftspeople. If anything, it's created new opportunities.
Oh, interesting. So it's more about adapting and evolving with the technology.
Exactly. And that's where resources like RoleCatcher come in. They're a game changer in this field,
Yeah.
helping people stay ahead of the curve. It was mentioned in the research materials, and it's worth diving into because it's amazing, actually. They've got, like, everything you need to know about this field all in one place.
Okay, so like a one-stop shop for aspiring paper embossing press operators.
Yeah. They've got job listings, of course,
Right.
but also insights into different companies, salary info, even interview tips that are tailored to, the specifics of the job.
That's super practical.
Right. And they don't just stop there. They got a whole section on, like, professional development.
Oh, cool. Like what?
So they'll link you to industry publications, workshops, all that good stuff. It's like having a mentor in your pocket, keeping you up to date.
Yeah.
And they even get into the nitty-gritty of the job, what it's actually like day to day.
Yeah, because we've talked about the art of it, the technical skills, but what about the realities of the job, the everyday challenges?
Right. And those FAQs you shared, those were spot on. They talked about things like the noise level in a printing plant. It can get loud.
Yeah, I bet.
And you're on your feet a lot. So you got to be comfortable with that.
Makes sense.
And there's always the potential for, repetitive strain injuries. if you're not careful.
Oh, yeah, that's a real concern with any kind of repetitive work.
Exactly. But for all the challenges, there's also immense satisfaction. Seeing your work come to life, creating something tangible and beautiful.
Yeah, I can see that being really rewarding.
It is. There's a real sense of pride that comes with it. And let's not forget the problem-solving aspect. Each project's like a puzzle.
How so?
Well, you're figuring out the right combination of dyes, the
Mm.
pressure, the paper type. You have to get that perfect effect. It requires a lot of attention to detail, a willingness to experiment.
Right, because you might not get it right the first time.
Exactly. And then you got to troubleshoot, figure out what went wrong and how to fix it.
Speaking of things going wrong with digital embossing coming into play, does that ever throw a wrench in the works?
It's interesting, right? Because you'd think digital would just take over.
Yeah.
And while digital embossing's great for like large-scale stuff or super
Yes.
intricate designs, it hasn't replaced traditional methods completely.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, there's still demand for that, handcrafted feel, the human touch. Plus, not every project calls for digital. Sometimes the traditional way is just better, more efficient.
So it's about having the skills to do both then, like knowing when to use which method.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The best operators are the ones who can bridge that gap between traditional and digital. They can adapt to new technology, but they also appreciate the art of the old ways.
So it's this constant evolution, always learning and adapting.
That's the name of the game. And, one thing that really stood out in all the research, they emphasized the importance of a portfolio.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Showcasing your work.
But it's not just about pretty pictures, a really strong portfolio for this kind of work.
Hmm.
It needs to tell a story.
Ooh, I like that. What kind of story are we talking about here?
Well, it's about showing the process,
Hmm.
the challenges you faced, the creative solutions you came up with.
So it's more than just the final product, it's the journey.
Yes. You're demonstrating your expertise, your passion for the craft. Maybe you highlight a project where you experimented with different dyes to get a specific texture, or a time when you had to, like, MacGyver the press to save the day. Things like that.
So you're showing off your problem-solving skills, too.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and nowadays, it's easier than ever to build that portfolio. You can have a website, an online gallery. It's like your digital museum of embossing.
And with the internet, you can reach a global audience.
Exactly. It's an amazing tool for showcasing your work and building your career. Speaking of which, we've talked about so many aspects of this field, the artistry, the technical stuff, the challenges.
Yeah, it's been a really insightful deep dive. But for someone listening who's like hooked now, they're intrigued, what would you say is the most important thing to remember about this career path?
It really makes you appreciate those hidden crafts, the things we don't always think about.
It's true. We take it for granted, like, oh, that's a pretty design, but we don't think about all the work and skill that goes into it.
And what's so cool to me is how it plays on our sense of touch. Like, in a world of screens and swiping, that physicality is almost unexpected,
Yeah, like when you get a business card with a really nice embossed logo, you want to hold on to it.
right? You run your fingers over it. It makes a difference. And that's something that digital can't quite replicate yet,
Yeah.
that tangible quality.
It's like the difference between looking at a photo of a sculpture and actually, touching it, feeling the texture.
Yes, exactly. And so these paper embossing press operators, they're almost like artisans in a way.
You're keeping that tradition alive.
Yeah, and pushing the boundaries too. It's not just about doing things the way they've always been done.
It's that mix of tradition and innovation that's so interesting to me. Like, we think of printing as this very, industrial process, but there's an art to it.
There really is. It's about creativity, problem solving.
And at the end of the day, it's about creating something beautiful, something that people can connect with.
That's what it's all about. So to wrap this all up, if you're listening and you're thinking, hey, this sounds pretty cool,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say is the biggest takeaway? What should they remember?
Honestly, I think it's about recognizing the value of those often unsung crafts, the skills and the dedication it takes to create something truly special.
And remember, in a world that's constantly trying to grab your attention, the ability to create something tangible, something that engages the senses, is a powerful thing. And if you have the passion and the skills, the possibilities are pretty much endless.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So maybe this has sparked an interest for you. Maybe you'll be the one designing that eye-catching packaging or that limited edition print. Who knows?
The possibilities are out there.
And on that note, we'll leave you to explore those possibilities. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.